So more about the Louisville anti-Occupy camping ban. It's total horse shit. Metro Louisville, Mayor Fisher's had a hard-on. He's been wanting to come at us with his goons for quite some time. You can just tell in his voice, he's just happy, he's like giddy. Be able to use the police force as his own private security firm when it's not a private security firm, it's for upkeeping law and order. Fisher, you do not. Fuck you, Fisher. The cops they're supposed to be to protect and serve the people. They're supposed to be there for the 99%, and until you can start getting your goons to go after the Chase banks and all these rich financiers who's fucking over lots of poor people, then you're always going to be an enemy of the 99%. You're a professional corruptionist. You're a professional corruptionist. You don't care. You don't care about Louisville. You don't care about Louisvillians. You care about the 1%. You're against working class. You're against labor unions, and you don't give a fuck about the homeless. You want to put a band-aid on this situation. It's just a PR campaign for you. You don't actually want to solve homelessness. You just want to cover it up so nobody sees what's going on. That's why you wrote a letter to a homeless man. Mayor Fisher, big, powerful, big Mayor Fisher. He writes a letter to the homeless Louisvillian. Hey, homeless Louisvillian, you need to get out. Now here's a $7,500 bill. And Greg Fisher's going to send a $7,500 bill in a letter to a homeless guy. What the fuck? A dick. And like his big ass mansion and all his rich millionaire friends, like you don't have enough. Like you don't have enough, and that's what you want to do is like try to fuck over the homeless. Is that what it is? That's probably what you talk to your lawyers for, right? Trying to figure out the best tactics in order to screw us over. Not how to bring us in, not how to recognize us with official public recognition like the city of Edinburgh or Los Angeles did, but to crush us. But you see, we can't be crushed. Occupy is a movement. People believe in Occupy, the worldwide Occupy movement, even if Occupy Louisville hasn't been able to effectively harness that energy, that charisma. It was attempted. A good attempt, I would say, by Curtis Morrison to harness that energy. But little else. There were some good ideas. We were feeding people on a day-to-day basis, and we were a sanctuary for a while. We were having general assemblies, which had some democratic functions, but it was not consensus-based, and it wasn't the Wall Street type of consensus-based politics or democracy. Which is why I'm appeal to it. I think if we can learn how to work in a democratic setting, we can change the world. So, Occupy Louisville didn't block it. That's what the letter said. Mayor Fisher writes this letter saying here's, a bill and all this other bullshit. Greg Fisher offers Founders Square for $1 for 99 years, but then to David S. I hate Palestinians Cordish. But for Occupy Louisville, Greg Fisher's trying to charge us $7,500. Well, I'm not going to pay fucking shit. Fuck you, Greg Fisher. Founders Square, it was fixed up finally with taxpayer money. Finally, you spend taxpayer money on something that was good. But you didn't have permission to build it on our land, the founder's land. That's George Roger Clark. That's the founder. Whoever give that land is exactly what needs to be done with it. And if we can't find out who it was, then it's undefined space. You don't own it. You don't own it. It's the public's. It's exactly, you messed up. You fucked up because you don't have the deed to it. So, I appreciate you putting the sod down there. It looks beautiful. Finally you improved our community. So, that's a success of Occupy. We're not going to pay for it. And, good, we pressured the city to actually give a fuck about one of the parks in Louisville. So, that's one of the successes, changing the narrative. Other successes, finding the homeless people some places to stay. My tent went to help a Mexican couple that were occupying it. This was after I ran into Dean Mike Morris of U of L, who tried to steal my shit. So these 1%ers, man, that's all they give a shit about. They know how to fuck you over and oppress you and take your shit and hit you and put violence on you, but they don't know how to, arrest a banker or how to arrest these politicians or these people that's in high places. There's a two-tiered justice system here in the United States, and there's one for the haves and the one for the haves-not. The have-nots, and the have-nots get a public pretender while the haves get a fucking lawyer and they get all the justice in the world. So while Greg Fisher wrote a harsh legal letter to a homeless man, J. Barfield, he also mentioned how there were security lapses at the park. The major difference between how Occupy Louisville and Cordish companies are treated is that Mayor Fisher is willing to subsidize at taxpayer expense and provide water, sanitation, and security detail for the 1% to defend David S. Cordish and Cordish companies. So such as 4th Street Live. 4th Street Live, they're even considering taxing us, the people, so we can pay for their sanitation and their water and their essentials and their concrete work and sidewalk work and all the rest. So, Barfield, for Dave Barfield of Occupy Louisville, he gets a $7,500 bill and a callous disregard for his well-being in his entire life. For David S. Cornish of Cornish Companies, Louisville Metro provides tax breaks, police protection for use of public facilities, and maybe even millions of dollars in taxpayer money in order to help fund his new project. Coming to Louisville soon. He's going to buy the Louisville Gardens, and he's going to take over the park. He might not take the park now, just because of all the scrutiny that's been on it. But he might. I mean, $100 to buy a park. Why wouldn't? Is dumb enough to not buy a park for $100? I would buy the park and erect a house. You know, I don't know what Cornish Companies is going to do with the park. Hopefully, erect a statue in honor of Occupy, the worldwide Occupy movement. If he's smart. On July 30th, 2012, Greg Fisher and Jack Conway. So that, you know, this is great, talking about the homelessness. Greg Fisher and Jack Conway come in with this big press conference where they're bragging. They announced that Louisville would be receiving $3.2 million from the National Mortgage Foreclosure Settlement. So Mayor Fisher and Jack Conway just got $3.2 million for Louisville to rehab vacant and abandoned buildings in Louisville. $3.2 million. Can we use $3.2 million to rehab some of these houses to put these homeless people in here? 10,000 homeless. You fucking pushed them away. You took a broom and you swept them off to the side. Have you fixed the homeless problem? You could fix the homelessness problem if you actually gave a shit about the homelessness. Or you just care about the property values. That's all you care about. You don't care about the human capital. You just care about the building capitals. The building capital. So according to Fisher, there's 6,000 to 7,000 vacant abandoned buildings in Louisville. So theoretically, if we was just to turn all the abandoned buildings, one building per homeless person would still be 3,000 plus folks who don't have a home. They'll still have to wander the streets until they find a golden ticket in their chocolate bar, until they get arrested and they allow for the criminal justice system to feed them, clothe them, and provide for their housing. Plus, Greg Fisher is more worried about what vacant and abandoned buildings do to property values. He doesn't care about the homeless. The lack of social function for vacant and abandoned buildings mock the homeless with their continued uselessness. Again, Greg Fisher doesn't give a shit about Dave Barfield and the very real epidemic of homelessness in Louisville. Instead, Fisher is only worried about the image of Louisville. From 2008 to 2011, banks foreclosed on 66,997 properties in Kentucky. 16,403 of those properties are in Louisville. So the banks are foreclosing on people's houses. They're evicting families out of their homes. People don't have a place to live. Unemployment rates are going up higher than in the West End than any other end. There's more violence. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, and for good reason, because there's been class war being waged against the American people for the last 30 years. 30 fucking years, ever since Ronald Reagan and his entire ideology. He tries to fire the air traffic controllers. That's when the labor movement went down after Ronnie Reagan. Fucking Ronnie Reagan. He's the bigger terrorist. He's the one that financed Bin Laden. If it wasn't for Ron Reagan giving the weapons to Bin Laden, 9/11 would never even happen. We wouldn't even had a Bin Laden. Ron Reagan also killed the priest in El Salvador, Oscar Romero, for defending a popular democratic rebellion. So Thomas Jefferson said that vacant institutions are more dangerous than standing armies. The camping ban and the inevitable repression coming from folks with a fascist mindset isn't surprising. The Louisville Metro Council understands violence and dictatorship, but not freedom and democracy. Of course, Naomi Klein, writer of the Shock Doctrine, had reported about how the Occupy crackdown was coordinated by the Obama administration through the U.S. Justice Department and Homeland Security Department. The Obama administration was able to speak to 18 mayors around the U.S. about tactics on how to crack down on the Occupy forces. Rick Ellis, a journalist at the Examiner, spoke with a justice official who claims each of the Occupy raid actions were coordinated with help from Homeland Security, the FBI, and other federal police agencies. Ellis reports, the official who spoke on background to me late Monday evening said that while local police agencies had received tactical and planning advice from national agencies, the ultimate decision on how each jurisdiction handles the Occupy protest will ultimately rest with the local law enforcement. According to this official, in several recent conference calls and briefings, the local police agencies were advised to seek a legal reason to evict residents of tent cities, focusing on zoning laws and existing curfew rules. Agencies were also advised to demonstrate a massive show of police force, including large numbers in riot gear. In particular, the FBI reportedly advised on press relations with one presentation suggesting that any moves to evict protesters be coordinated for a time when the press was the least likely to be present. If only governments would spend as much time fixing the problems of the people instead of wasting plenty of time and taxpayer resources and stop American citizens from exercising the First Amendment rights, we'd have a better city. Denver, Colorado recently passed their own camping bans, so they're passing camping bans all throughout the country. So this isn't just located here in Louisville. The camping ban was passed in Denver in May 2012, 2 months before Louisville's, so it shouldn't come as a surprise. Denver City Council, which was different than Louisville Metro Council, had 4 folks who voted against the camping ban. So the camping ban passed 9-4, but there was at least 4 people that voted against it. Nobody voted against it in Louisville. So that's one advantage that Denver had. A better movement is more farther along. Another advantage that Denver had, the city council was overflowing with people. So Occupy was able to inspire some of the folks to get out there and help protest and march with them. So one way, so they had both more supporters in the government and more supporters amongst the people. But one way that the Denver camping ban is worse than Metro Louisville camping ban is that Denver made it illegal to camp overnight on all properties, public or private. In Louisville, you're allowed to camp on your own land. That's one good thing. Denver says you can't even camp overnight on your own land. Louisville says that you can. So Louisville, don't worry about it. The camping ban doesn't apply to you on your own lawn in your own house in the front yard or your backyard. You're allowed to camp in your backyard. You're allowed to camp on your front yard. That is not illegal anymore. But Denver it is. And Denver Police Chief Robert White, who come out of Louisville, and we miss you, Robert White, said that his officers will be sparing in their approach to the new law and will issue citations or make arrests only as a last resort. So the police chief is saying it's going to be a last resort. No, our police chief has not said that. I could call him and get a comment out of him, see if he would say anything about it. Maybe he would. I didn't give him a chance. So overall, Louisville Metro Incorporated doesn't mind selling public land that they don't even fucking own to some sinister, shadowy, behind-the-scenes corporation for several generations, for over 100 years or for 99 years, to a family that is supporting Israelis' bloodshed and war and destruction and murder and their terrorism. So the Cordish Company supports terrorism, Israeli terrorism, and it's just fucked up because they mind people who protest the homelessness epidemic in Louisville, but they don't mind these criminals who, these corporate criminals, these rich billionaires that come in here acting like they own everything. They support terrorism. They use their money as a bludgeon in order to get however they want to get. And who is inevitably always the losers in any of these big money deals? It's always the people. The clearest example of the failure of capitalism is the homeless. Why is there homeless in every American city in the country? America could do better, okay? We're not third world country, so we're better than a lot of the world, but we can do better. This is supposed to be America. We're supposed to be the richest country in the world. How do we have homelessness on our streets? How does anybody starve to death on our streets? It's time for Americans to become Americans again. Louisville Metro Incorporated doesn't care about the homelessness epidemic. They only care when the problem becomes visible. So it's one thing to have homeless people, but they don't want to have to look at them. Mayor Fisher Incorporated and Louisville Metro doesn't care about the 10,000 plus homeless in Louisville, just like they don't care about workers' unions or living wage or widespread unemployment or foreclosures. Being #1 for education, have #1 for child deaths and child abuse cases, #1 for fastest growing prison rates, #1 for people per capita in prisons, #1 for cancer, having 25% of our children drenched in entrenched poverty or poor health care, poor education, lots of poverty. Other issues that working families have to endure in Kentucky and Louisville during this Great Recession. 22 houses stand for every vacant homeless person in America. If Mayor Fisher Incorporated and Louisville Metro Incorporated cared about the homelessness epidemic, they'd use the city's resources to solve it, but that's not what they use the resources for. They use it to pay for the extra police and the extra lawyers and the extra legal fucking documents and bullshit in order to fight us, we the people who's trying to bring these issues to the forefront. We are nonviolent. We're committed to nonviolence. We are peaceful protesters, peaceful demonstrators, peaceful Americans. They're trying to do their damnedest to criminalize those who stand in solidarity with the working class and poor. The homelessness epidemic is just a lesson in public relations for them. If Mayor Fisher and Louisville Metro Incorporated can sweep all poor people under the rug, out of the middle of the woods, under a bridge, just whenever, as long as the homelessness are out of sight, So none of their corporate elite buddies ever has the chance to see him. The government for the possibility city would consider that a successful public relations maneuver. Louisville Metro City Council just wants the 99% to be spectators to the real political show. The show of the Louisville aristocracy, the plutocrat fascists, and the gateway to the south, or the back door to the north. So, fuck the camping ban, fuck Metro Council and Mayor Fisher. Occupy. Viva La Revolucion.